Those are the first two parts to a song I wrote in 1999 called On the Horizon. It's a finger-picking piece that uses mostly arpeggios to break up bass notes that give you an idea of what chord you're playing, and then melody notes that kind of pop out from behind the chords. So what we're going to learn in this lesson, we're going to break this down into a lot of small segments and put them out a little bit at a time, so it's not a big old mammoth task for everybody to work on. So this is part of our series of lessons. They're going to come out maybe once a month. There will be another little section to this, broken up into, who knows, 8, 10, 15 parts. We'll see how it evolves. There is a third section that I will address later as we get into that, but that's the first two sections. And of course, the song is available on my album, On the Horizon, that you can pick up right here. So what it does, though, mostly the techniques we're going to be working on in this are a pattern that happens in 70 or 80% of the measures that consists of hitting two bass notes. The first two bass notes are both played as eighth notes, and then there are a couple of melody notes. There we go. It went thumb, thumb, index, middle. And that type of pattern usually happens on the first two beats of a measure, followed by an alternating pattern on the second half of the measure, so that there are bass notes on beats 1, 1 and, eighth notes on 1 and then a quarter note on 2, and a quarter note on 3, and a quarter note on 4. So the bass is a pattern of 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Not on 2, like I just said a second ago. So it's 1 and then there are a couple of melody notes on 2 and then a bass note on 3, a melody note on the and, a bass note on 4, and a melody note on the and of that. So that kind of sequence is a lot of what we're going to address in this lesson. And then along with that, there are the other sweeping parts of the melody where the melody is not consistent, so every measure doesn't go just like that. The song, I wrote it when I was getting ready for the first really big concert of my life, which was in May of 1999. I was scheduled to do a performance with my all-time hero, John Renbourn. And so in preparation for that event, I sat down in early 1999 and figured I should have some new songs if I'm going to. It'd been a while since I'd done a show or a concert like that, and actually I'd never done one like that. So playing with John Renbourn was the thrill of my life, absolute biggest thrill. Up until then. There have been some other ones since, but I'll get more to those later. But anyway, so getting a chance to play with the master, as far as I was concerned, was a lot of what instigated me working on a few new tunes. There was one called Back to the Drawing Board, On the Horizon, and SOS was another one I wrote right around the same time in early 1999. So again, what we're going to do with this is break it down into small parts and look at exactly everything that happens in there. So without further ado or rambling much more, let's take a look at part 1A. The song is really in 3 parts. Again, you just heard 2 of them there. And part 3 sounds a little bit like this. Anyway, sounds a lot like that. That's pretty much part 3. But I will save that for when we get to part 3 a few months down the road. On the Horizon is a song that was created using a technique, mostly arpeggios, but the notes in the arpeggio are broken down into sometimes 3 different categories. There are bass notes, melody notes, and filler, much as there would be in lots of other finger-picking songs. So what we're going to do in this clip is take a look just at the first 8 measures, because if you can get through those, you're well on your way to some of the rest. One of the most difficult moves in the song is right in the beginning, and it's a very tricky little fingering thing. So hopefully you have the music there in front of you. Here's my copy. And what we're going to do is start off with a chord, an A shape of a chord, but it's a little bit more. You really just need 2 notes down. You need your second finger on the 4th string at the 2nd fret, and your index finger, your first finger, on the 3rd string, on the G sharp there, on the third string, 1st fret. So one of the most important things in this song is making sure your thumb plays the bass notes and your fingers play the melody notes and the filler notes. most of the bass notes in the music have stems down, although there are some that you play with your thumb that have stems up, and that's because some of those double as bass notes and melody notes. So that happens at the end of the first section is one of the main ones of those that happen. So taking a very slow look or close look at the first measure, we have the pattern begins with two thumbs on the 5th and 4th string, and then your index finger playing the 3rd string, and your middle finger playing the 2nd string. Very simple. Nothing fancy going on there. Again, I've just got my 1st and 2nd fingers down here. I hit my thumb again in the bass and add my 3rd finger on the C sharp at the 2nd fret of the B string. My thumb comes in and hits, all of those notes stay down. I hit the 4th string with my thumb and move to the high E. Now that E has to ring into the next measure, and we're about to go on to a chord that there are a lot of different ways of fingering. So here's that first measure again, leading up to the first bass note of the second measure. Really, really important that the high E keeps ringing. Now, the way I finger this, I want to keep my 2nd finger on the 4th string throughout this whole change. Now that's going to create a really tight squeeze for one of the fingering choices for this measure. Now I leave my 2nd finger where it is, I hit the high open E, and then my 1st finger comes in and puts what is essentially a bar across the 6th and 5th strings.